Recording in progress.
see what you are, Gabe. Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. We'll go ahead and call to order the Wednesday, May 15th meeting of the Trinidad Planning Commission. We'll begin with a roll call.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Here.
Commissioner Hickman.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Cole.
Present.
Commissioner Slade.
I'm over here.
All right, next approval of the minutes, April 17th minutes. I was the only one missing, so I'll abstain from the vote, but any changes anybody would like to see to the minutes from the April 17th meeting?
I have a minor clarification.
Go for it.
Under items from the floor, it wasn't my expectation that the mayor comes to every planning commission meeting, just those which are of intense public interest and perhaps controversial ones as well, specifically rail closures. Was what came to mind. I know that Mayor Kelly is missing her respect.
All right, any other changes? Trevor, did you capture that one? All right. Anything else anybody saw?
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will abstain. All right. Approval of tonight's agenda. Are there any changes anybody would like to make to tonight's agenda? Commissioners, anything? Nope.
We want to, it looks like we have the people involved in item 5A and B. Do we want to let them get out of here, or do they want to?
Also, 3 and 4 are here too.
Oh, okay. So everybody's here. Oh, okay.
Okay.
You could put trails last.
That's the fun quick. That'll be the nice. That's just a report. There's no discussion. All right, so then we'll leave the agenda as is. All right. Agenda.
Second.
All right. All right. All right. We will now begin with items from the floor. This is the time when members of the public have 3 minutes to speak about anything that's not on tonight's agenda. Are there any members of the public in the room or in Zoom world that would like to say anything? Things that are not on tonight's agenda. Not seeing any. All right, we'll bring it back to the commission and head right into our agenda items. Agenda item number 1. Trevor, take it away.
So this is our monthly update on the closure of the Axel Lindgren Memorial Trail and progress to open it. So the management team continues to work towards a temporary realignment of the realignment wouldn't be temporary, but the trail that would go in this spring or summer would be a temporary condition until a little bit more permanent improvements are planned and funded. We met since the last meeting. We met on site as well as another management team meeting, and it's like Public Works cleared the trail, and there was a site visit yesterday with the management team and RTA. I don't know, Eli, were you there? Maybe
yeah,
you
I was
can
there.
provide a little bit of update on that.
And so yesterday we had Public Works, Sarah Lindgren, myself, and 2 people from RCAA from their crew. So it was clear down to the point where we want to divert the portion towards the bottom of the trail, and as a result, they spent over an hour plus, actually almost 2 hours. Yeah, so somewhere in the range of between an hour and a half and 2 hours, and they cleared the path towards the bottom. They didn't go all the way through because we had mentioned to them about keeping it secure at the bottom. And we were supposed to meet tomorrow, but I got an email saying that basically Susanna, who is the executive director of our CAA, and Tom who's the lead trail clearing group. And wants to ensure that we're clear on our goal of brushing the trail from the top. And after visiting the site twice, we have all the information needed and will provide an estimate in the next day or so. GHD would be better suited to design a bridge to the boulder. So on that day, we were talking about the fact that the boulder where we're supposed to have the trail meet the beach, apparently because of erosion, is further away from the shoreline, so, or at least from where the trail began. Originally, I guess it was close. Now it isn't. I think they said it was like around 1998 when the trail was diverted from the prior, which is what we're seeking right now, versus what the current was. So subsequently, I guess it has moved enough that we may need a bridge. So they're asking if GHD could design a bridge to the boulder. And then they said it was restricted the amount of work we can perform out of contract. So feel you should proceed with the trip to the beach without us unless you want to time it for when we are out brushing the trail. So we'll try to coordinate when they're going to be coming back to brush the trail, and then we will, myself and Sarah and hopefully Steve Allen, who was able to make it yesterday because he's out of town. And then it's saying when the bridge is designed, we can provide an estimate to build it if you will. So that's the email I got from them. Originally, I was planning on meeting with them tomorrow, but apparently they got all the information you need.
Okay, folks, any questions from the commissioners for Eli or Trevor?
I'll just, I guess a real simple question is based on where what you've just reported on, are we still on schedule, you believe, to open the trail Memorial Day?
That's what I'm hoping for. We'll talk to Steve Allen when he gets back next week. And it wasn't Memorial Day, it was July. Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot the date, but
Right. Yeah, July. So
what
as far as I'm concerned, we're, that's what we're shooting for. So hopefully we can find a way to get people safely down to the bottom.
Any questions from the public? All right. Number 2, Trevor.
So this is similar to the Axel Lindgren, but this is the report on the Van Wyck Trail closure. So unfortunately, I don't have as much update to report. I think the council's preferred option was to move the trail upslope based on comments from the upslope property owners after meeting with the Ancestral Society, is that that's not going to be an option. At least that Ancestral Society of your tribe will approve, and the property owners don't want to move forward with something that they've not approved. They have asked the Ancestral Society to, because their last letter said they would consider that option, and so I've asked them to please state their position in writing so that we have that formally. The other thing the council requested was some additional history as the Van Wyck Trail. We haven't.
You have anything to add on that?
No.
Have you here tonight? No?
Yeah, because yesterday the council meeting, I gave an update and it's the same, no change since what Trevor reported.
I have one clarification. So I understand that CAS has, and the UROC has always maintained opposition to the upslope option. Is that correct?
Well, so I don't think so they did pass a resolution, the tribal council. I don't think it said they want the Van Wyck Trail closed.
Okay.
But that wasn't necessarily specific to an upslope option. So, we weren't sure if that would be.
I'm assuming that's getting clarified too, or will be.
I think in general, And we talked about this a little bit today at a different, manner. But basically, the Yurok tribe will generally defer to the TAS for issues to. So, you know, I think if the ancestral society were willing to go along with it, the tribe might consider it and vice versa.
Anything else?
Well, I just have one little nit, and it has to do with the first paragraph there. Where we said that in our March 20th meeting, that one of the conditions was the city staff would provide monthly updates as an agendized item at both planning commission and city council meetings. The nit, but the city council meeting does not have an agenda item for it. It's part of the staff report, which is probably acceptable. I just want to make sure that either we change this to allow for that or make a new requirement.
Yeah, I can answer that. So we have our agenda review committee, which is made up of the mayor pro tem and myself. And we discussed at the exact point, and it was suggested that I have it in my staff report, which I did. And under consent calendar, the staff report is the first item in consent.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I just think in order to keep the records clear, maybe we have to change the background information. That's all.
But I mean, I do think that was your condition, and I think that that's what was discussed, is that it could be on consent, but it would be its own separate agenda item.
So just to speak to that, my intent behind that requirement was that it was a specific line item that was very clear to any member of the public that that was being discussed, because we received feedback that there was concern that when there were opportunities to speak. And so in order to make it clear to the public, a single line item, agendized item is very clear. It's very difficult, rather than having to wade through your staff report and understand what may or may not be in it. Just kind of intent to keep it simple. So yeah, I picked up on that last night as well.
Okay.
Like I said, that was the condition, was an agenda is separate agenda item, so.
Yeah, I mean, procedurally, the way I see it is that I will talk with the mayor and mayor pro tem. I'll express your desire, indicate that that's what the planning commission is suggesting.
Well, it's what we conditioned the closure on. It's not a.
Oh,
it's not a suggestion. It was a condition of approval. It was
Okay.
pretty black and white.
That's
from
fine.
my perspective, yeah.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Anything else? Any members of the public on that? Yeah, Jack.
It's Jack Tuttle, speaking as a resident of Trinidad. So it's under my understanding that we didn't want people taking the Vanderbilt Trail because it could be a dangerous, hazardous thing for our insurance company. Is that right, Eli?
Yeah, they're the ones who said close it. We used to have a sign basically at usage.
I've been noticing members of the community that are 70 years or older actually using the that trail recently, until we put a big blockade over it. Maybe 2 weeks ago, someone put a blockade over it. It's like a mesh right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Maybe, yeah.
Oh, it's from the Mercer Crater. Oh.
Right. So, you know, I go to Trinidad Head a lot, and I notice that we have a big sign that says, going past this point, the city takes on no liability. I would love to pose like a recreational trail immunity for that spot. So people that choose to still take that path, they can still take that path. I mean, I know there's people in this room that might even be taking it currently. But if we can look at maybe asking our insurance company, can we put a sign up for those residents that still want to continue to use that path? Because right now it's still the safer path than using the busy street ahead. It's just a better path. So, and I feel like we need to listen to the Coastal Commission's guidance on this. I mean, I know there's pushback from the different groups up here, but the Coastal Commission is pretty strong about getting this path reopened. It's the safest path to the ocean, away from the busy streets. And I really feel we as a commission and a group need to work forward and maybe not listen to everyone in the room and do what's right for the city and the population that comes and visits us on a daily basis. Thanks.
Thank you.
If I could comment, so it's just clarify on one point, and everything else, makes sense to me, because as far as I'm concerned, the coastal commission body did say to pursue it, if it's possible, to reopen it, and that was our goal. We'll be meeting again on Monday with the California Coastal Commission local staff. But as far as the insurance provider, which it's a joint powers authority with 50 other cities. Last December at the board meeting, they had an agenda item and with the resolution in it. That agenda item specifically stated that if the Van Wyck Trail is opened without improvements, that it would not be insured.
Be closed with a sign that says, walk on your own free will.
Well, the only way that they accepted it was what we did before, which we got the chain and says trail closed. Originally it had said at your own risk, so they said that that was not sufficient. So we could keep it the way it was, other than because of the construction, they put that fence up. And that fence will be coming down, and then we could just keep the chain with the sign saying trail closed.
Is there any type of enforcement if a community member wants to walk on the trail?
No. And the only other thing that they were suggesting is the former so-called retaining wall or fence or whatever that's wooden and actually has some nails sticking from it. They actually suggested that we sort of cut it down to the base because they were afraid that nails could hurt people. But that was like, in a way, when they said that, they were implying that if we did improvements, that should be one of the things that we do. We do that, and then whatever improvement we want.
Anything else from the commission? All right. Trevor show continues. Trevor, agenda item number 3.
Right, so this is application CUP design to convert an existing 400 square foot storage shed into office space. The shed does straddle a property line, so there will be a lot merger associated with that. The project will be consistent with the city's detached living space policy, which I just realized is not attached. Get review one of these last July, so hopefully it's a little bit familiar in terms of the process. This is something that the city has allowed over the years instead of detached accessory structures into additional space. In this case, it's offices, a floor plan shown. Plans, and there will also be a small deck and a studio or sitting room as well that's included in that. So no change in the appearance of the structure other than new siding, doors, things like that. So the size of the structure won't change. The Commissioner Slay does own property within 360 feet, so there's a presumed financial conflict of interest when property within 500 feet. So I will let Commissioner Slay address.
I will recuse myself. Next meeting when I'm invited back.
Will do.
So the project is located in the UR zone, which is the denser residential zone in the city of Trinidad. Again, the project is not going to change setbacks. Actually, it'll reduce some non-conformance because the shed won't be straddling a property line any longer. The shed does meet setbacks as it is for residential structures. The merger of the two properties will bring it up to a pretty good sized property of 15,000 So that actually- Area ratio and things like that, so those are shown, those square footages are shown in table 1. Not gonna affect parking, doesn't affect the septic system. The applicant has already gotten a permit to tie the shed into the existing septic system, which is shown on the plans. A new reserve area was located on the lower parcel a few years ago as part of another project. So septic is fine. There, as part of that previous project in 2013, there was supposed to be a deed restriction recorded. The city doesn't have evidence that that was done, so that's when it here to either show that that was already done or to have that recorded at this point. Design review findings are written in a manner to allow approval. The project, there is a trail that goes just north of the shed. This is really going to affect the aesthetics, might even improve the look of the shed for people walking on the trail. That's one issue that comes up in findings. Staff recommendation is for approval. As usual, you have some alternatives if you have concerns about the project in terms of adding conditions to address specific concerns, continuing the project to obtain additional information, or denying the project if you feel that one or more of the findings made. Conditions of approval are fairly standard and include the conditions, the standard conditions from the detached living space policy, as well as requirements for meeting building inspector and city engineer requirements. The building inspector did note that because it's a conversion of use, there are certain things about the structure that will have to be brought up to residential code requirements. That will be done as part of the building process, and requiring a merger. Any questions?
Questions for Trevor from the commission?
Yeah, the notice of lot merger that's approved by city staff, is that a recorded document with the county? Does that also like create a new legal description for the parcel?
I believe so. I'm trying to recall the last one we did. And I think it does have to be prepared by a licensed surveyor, that notice.
My other question, which I didn't see it in here, maybe Jack has the answer, is do we know when this shed was originally constructed?
Cement little. Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah, I got just one question, on condition 7, applicant to agree to periodic inspections, walkthroughs. I didn't think we had to do that for just an upgrade to a detached structure.
That is one of the standard policies in the detached living space. We modified it a little bit. I forget the exact wording, but just so that it's not amounts of time, like not more than once a period or something like that.
That's right. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So we did modify that language, but it's still in the policy.
Okay. And that policy wasn't attached. Is that what you said?
Nope. I just had a couple, one, I did want to disclose, I did a site visit, so I got to go out and walk it and use that trail a great deal. There's no visual impact from there that I saw, you know, of consequence. It's really quite a small building. There were a couple questions I had or comments. kind of a general one, Trevor, what is the new and better system we have now to track these deed restrictions in the city?
I think just, better staff communication, hopefully, and we're working more closely with the building official. So I mean, we have had we have a checklist. We did develop that maybe prior to 2013. But I think we have better staff communication.
And then is there a binder or repository somewhere in the city that capture all these as they come in over the years, so that way someone could walk in and go, hey, are there any deed restrictions for my property? Oh, here's a binder, look through it.
It's not in a binder per se, but so this project, the city keeps files by APNs, and so this project will have its own file, and so someone can get in there. Or it should also, it's something that would show up in the title.
Yeah, the title report, I don't know that they would,
It should show up on the title.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if they contact the city, right?
well, it should be on record of the county,
Yeah, the county.
Yeah.
but the title company does not stick that deep.
And then I had just on condition number 5, looks like extension of and should be and. And then I had you talk about it shall not be used or rented separately from the primary structure. Can you just help me understand the intent behind shall not be used separately from the main structure? I understand obviously rented separately, but I just didn't understand what that language is trying to do.
But I think the intent is that it's not its own independent living facility. You know, maybe used isn't the right, not the most specific word. Because I think it could be used as an independent residence even if it wasn't rented as such. So I think that was the intent, and that's the language in our policy. But yeah, you know, it's vague. I mean, it's really, the intent is that the space will be used as an extension of the primary.
Anything else from the commission? Jack, as the applicant, anything you want to say or present, or any questions for, any other questions for? Tuttle?
No.
Okay. Any public comments on the project? Anybody in the room or in Zoom land? Not seeing anybody rushing, then I will bring it back to the commission for any additional discussion or entertain a motion.
I'll move. Based on the application materials, information and findings included in this staff report and based on public testimony, I find that the project is consistent with the Trinidad LCP and other applicable regulations, and I move to adopt the information and required design review and view protection findings in the staff report and approve the project as described in the staff report and as conditioned therein.
I'd second that.
And just before you finish, did you guys get Dick Bruce's email on supporting the project? I just add that to the public record, our
Okay.
neighbors.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay.
All right, passes unanimously 4-0 with Commissioner Slade using this. I think he went terribly far. Give me just a second. I think he went home.
Trevor, they're tearing up the road over there for the water. And, you know, is there gonna be a sidewalk going along that north side?
Not as part of that project,
I know, but at some point it might be, right?
maybe.
They might have to throw so much pipe in there or something, so they don't have to change everything around.
With the ability to have a sidewalk and it's, see how they're doing it, and there's no prior planning for a possible sidewalk.
Is it that, the pipes underground?
They're all exposed, yeah, because they're hooking things up. And, yeah, just a little bit of extra pipe, and then it might be a lot easier in the future.
Yes.
Commissioner Slade said he's on his way, so. Shadow in the door. Yay. All right, Trevor, agenda item number 4. Moving along.
Right, so this is part of the digital 299 broadband project that you might have heard about or driven through if you've gone over to 9 recently. And the intent is to provide better broadband service to rural and underserved areas. And so this is another phase of that project. They're bringing the line up from 299 along 101 into Trinidad, so it's going to come off northbound off ramp, or it's actually the southbound on ramp is where it's coming down, and then down Main Street, Trinity and Edwards, and terminating at Lab. This project does require a grading and coastal development permit, due to, even though it's going to be horizontal directional drilling, that's how they're going to install it. So not big trenching, and they're going to install it as close to the edge of the right of way as possible. The city engineer, Josh at GHT, is still working out some details with them on the specific design and location. In addition, we wanted to get the permit going because of their construction timeline and appeal periods and things like that. But this is still going to have to go to the city council for city approval as property owner. That I noticed I intended to include that as a condition, but it's not. So add that as a condition. And one of the things that maybe the applicant could clarify tonight for us is, my understanding was that third parties would be able to connect into this line to provide additional broadband service to the public. But Josh wasn't sure about that, so that might be something to clarify in terms of benefits. People in the city, but construction won't take too long. And the city engineer is reviewing this pretty carefully in terms of other city utilities, protecting utilities, and sort of grading permit requirements are being met. There's really no design review or specific findings. It doesn't affect zoning or setbacks or things like that. It's more technical kind of issues with it, but because it's development in the coastal zone and process some sensitive areas and disturbs a certain amount of soil, there's the coastal development permit that's required. And so it's basically conditioned on the city engineer's approval of the final plans. It does involve some ground disturbance in culturally sensitive areas. We did include a condition to contact a monitor and have a monitor on site or as otherwise requested. So if monitor doesn't feel they need to be there, rather than have them there. Staff recommendation is for approval as conditioned, but with the added condition that the city council approvals are for.
Trevor.
Yeah, we figured about a sidewalk along Edwards.
This would include.
But the engineer is aware that there's gonna be a sidewalk and be thinking about it.
Questions for Trevor?
Just a clarification on page 3. The engineering requirements on item 8. Following installation of conduit, the contractor shall camera existing city gravity utilities, that is SD. What's SD?
Storm drain.
Storm drain, okay. So is the completion of this camera work included in the 4 or 5 days that they say that they were going to do the project, or is the public going to be looking at a longer period of time?
I would guess that's probably not included in that
I
construction.
guess too, I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. Okay, just so it's clear, who is responsible for obtaining a cultural monitor? Is that the contractor? Is that the city?
It's generally left up to the contractor to do.
Maybe this is a question for the agent. Are they online? Well, I guess it's a general question. I'm assuming that there will be no open trenches for any of this effort, with the exception of what they call the end
Yeah, there's some,
handholds or something like that.
yeah, there's some access points, and then there's the utility boxes, vaults. There's 3 utility vaults that are included, and then periodic access points for the drill.
Yeah, the proposed handhold. My point, I guess, is I want to make sure, even though it's not shown, or it is shown on the general underground construction details that show an open trench for building these, but they're not referenced or shown on any of the specific plans. So I imagine this is just a generic definition of what they're supposed to look like. You know, is that correct?
I don't know, Trevor, if it's appropriate for me to speak now or if I should wait until the end, but my name is Jess Alden. I'm representing Bureau at this meeting.
Perfect. Yeah, you guys are good, we'll go. Yeah, please, go ahead, Jess.
Okay, yeah, so I can confirm we do plan to utilize horizontal directional drilling. In the construction notes, we do have notes for trenching, but we would not, intend to utilize trenching. And if for some reason a condition in the field, required use of open cut trenching instead of horizontal directional drilling, we would need to go back to the city engineer. So we would utilize horizontal directional drilling, which, correct, it would only have ground disturbance at our bore pit locations, which would be located about every 500 to 800 feet. And based on the distance between our handholds, which are the permanent, not really above ground, but flush with the road access faults, those are spaced about like every 1,000 feet. So we would have one bore pit location between each handhole, which would be, dug up during construction. It would be sized at about 3 by 5 or 6, and it would just be a point for the horizontal directional drill to come up. We would reset it and then drill it to the next handhole, and that would be, temporary. We would restore if whether it's pavement, sidewalk, or grass, we would restore it to better or existing condition. And then I can also speak, we do have a environmental contractor onboarded that we've been using for phase 1, which, as I'm sure most of you know, is under construction along State Route 299. So we do have cultural monitors, biological monitors, and then when needed, which for this part of the project, the CPUC has initiated consultation under AB 52 with the various tribes in the area. So if requested by one of the tribes, we can also coordinate for any sort of tribal monitoring.
With that in mind, have you reached out to the local tribal entities?
So the CPUC, on behalf as the CEQA lead of the project, has reached out. Vera Fiber Networks has not personally reached out at this point, but if the tribes reach out to the respond to the CPUC's request for consultation, we will reach out to them directly.
On that same point, just to clarify, our condition though is that it be a culture monitor from either the Yurok, Churai, or Rancheria, right? And the one you have on staff, Jess, may not be from their list. So the project in Trinidad would have something from one of those three.
Got it. Apologies, I had not seen that condition. So yes, in that case, if it is a condition of the permit, then our cultural monitor and our cultural team will reach out from our environmental contractor. We'll reach out to those three tribes and make sure to procure a monitor.
And I will say they did not respond to referrals or a notice. But we just know based on experience that they generally would like a cultural monitor, even for directional drilling. So like the CAL FIRE water line that went in, they requested a cultural monitor. So the intent of the condition is that you do reach out to them, and if they want someone there, you will have someone there. If they say they don't need someone there, then you don't need someone there.
Great, thank you.
I had a few more questions for you, Jess. What would be the earliest start date for this realistically playing out that it would, because I know it has to go back to the council. Trevor, were you anticipating that at the second in May, or more realistically the June meeting?
Probably the June meeting, although I understand it's pretty full. If there's a second May meeting, maybe we could get it on that. I think, I know they wanted, well, Jess can speak more, but I know they want to start before Labor Day, and to line up contractors, short periods and things like that. So I think there's time for city council.
And I guess just to be specific, Jess, is there any chance that this would take place prior to June 14th?
Well, we would not begin construction until receiving our permit. So in that case, no, but we do have, as I mentioned, construction is ongoing for phase 1. So we are flexible on timing. Like Trevor said, we would like to construct before Labor Day, just as we would like to utilize some of the same crews that are working on phase 1 and bring them to phase 2 without having to demobilize and then come back out. But we are flexible. We could, if we got the permit in 2 weeks, we could, put a plan in to have construction occur 2 weeks later. But we were hoping for, sometime in July.
Right, okay. And the reason I asked, just to be specific, is June 3rd and then June 12th. There are two events of significance to the school in town that are going to heavily utilize that street. And one of them is a graduation ceremony on the 12th in the afternoon that's outside, right adjacent to the street there. So that would be poor timing to have a drill rig and traffic and that kind of stuff. So I want to make sure that that doesn't end up being a conflict.
Understood. Yeah, we can be flexible.
Okay, wonderful. And then will there be a staging area for equipment, and where is that going to be? I don't know if that was in the construction notes that we didn't see.
So our construction contractor actually has a yard in Arcata. So per my understanding, equipment should just be driven up from Arcata every day.
And roughly what kind of hours are you guys operating, and what noise is directional drilling generate for the community? So
I can't speak to exact decibel levels of noise as I'm not familiar, but we are using a mini HDD, so it's typically a lower level of noise disturbance. I believe, along State Route 299, we are having like more of a 7 to 6 or 7 p.m. depending on Caltrans's ability to provide us with traffic clearance or traffic control. But we could adjust the timing of construction depending on the city's preference, but typically I think it's typical to work 8 to 5.
Thanks. That's all I have. Anybody else saying?
I had a couple of questions for Trevor, I believe. And maybe Jess can chime in as well regarding the last mile connections and potential tapping in of third parties into this infrastructure. And I was curious what that permitting process would look like. Would it require CDPs? Would those types of things have to come before us if people are tapping into those existing?
It
conduits?
would depend on what the construction involves in terms of ground disturbance. But not necessarily, it's more about physical impact. And then, I don't know in terms of the city's rights of way and franchise agreements and things like that, that's not really my end of.
Yeah, but there's nothing that would preclude, tapping into this, as far as like
And
ordinances and LCP.
Yeah.
There's a concern that we've discussed a little bit in the past, but the pipeline project on Edwards is essentially done, right? And it's ready for paving. Is that?
It's not completely done, but on Friday, they are going to do a paving. But then sometime probably within the next month, I'm not sure exactly when, they'll come back and dig it up because they need to do some additional work and then they'll repave it. And then that will be the final paving.
Well, until September, then these folks will be distributing.
Well, the whole project was, the rest of it is off of West State. So, but here, it should be done in approximately a month. But I'm not 100% sure. I just know for sure, Friday they're gonna do a repaving, so that it will be pretty close to a final paving. But then when they come back and then they'll do the final paving itself. So they wanna make it better access, especially with Memorial Day coming on.
Right, just so this project will probably be removing some of that relatively fresh paving, is my question.
I'm not necessarily because of the horizontal drilling, and it's generally gonna be on the edge of the right of way, which in this case are outside the pavement, most likely, or right on the edge of the pavement.
No real concerns, I was just sort of curious about the sequencing.
All right, any questions, concerns, comments from the public then, if there's nothing else from the commissioners, either the applicant or for Trevor? Eli, please.
Yes, I was gonna ask just regarding the question about third parties, if they can connect to the line.
Yes, so I can't speak on exact specifics right now, that's another team here at Vero, but I do know that this is the first step to being able to provide broadband to businesses and residents, and Vero across phase 1 is working with businesses, local agencies, higher education institutions, organizations, etc., to work together to make sure that our fiber is in the most useful paths and that our access points, because how this will work is at those 3 handhole locations, and then the 4th one is technically within the Caltrans right of way, but Vero can provide a splice which would allow a local carrier to come in and connect into our fiber, and then they'll be able to provide it to those businesses, residents, etc. So we are willing and we want to work with a local carrier in order to locate those splice points accordingly within the city of Trinidad so that they can come in and provide future access.
So I am city manager, and you did mention like government along the same lines as educational institutions. So ideally, if we could tap into the fiber to help improve our connectivity here, that would be ideal for the town hall.
Yes, so I don't know if I'm allowed to speak to specifics, but I know we are working with another government agency, local agency, along the route to do the same thing.
Anything else? We'll bring it back to the commission. I did want to clarify, Trevor, you had mentioned a condition that you wanted to add. I just want to understand that was that it has to go to the city council next. That was that sixth condition.
Yeah.
That'd be a sixth condition.
I was going to, the grading ordinance has limits on days and hours.
Yeah, I believe it's 7 AM, I think.
Well, they're pretty broad.
Yeah.
Find it.
No, I was just curious. I mean, I imagine it would be reasonable. Put it within the 6:30, 6:45 wake up call for Edwards.
Well, I mean, just to basically say that they generally work 8 to 5, so if we have it set up as 8 to 5, that probably would be ideal.
And then I guess I wanted to ask Trevor and the commission about the comfort level. I'd like to add a addition, basically just stating that if construction timing work is to occur on June 3rd or June 12th, the contractor work with the elementary school principal superintendent so as to not interfere with events on those 2 days and come to mutually agreeable modifications.
We can certainly add that. I will say that, because of the way we're doing the appeal periods now, it's 2 weeks and then 2 weeks, so there's really
No chance.
no way, because the appeal period will still be running.
That handles that perfectly. Okay. Break that then. Just Trevor 6 months. Okay. If there's nothing else, then we want to entertain a motion. All happy to make a motion that based on the information submitted in the application included in the staff report and public testimony, I find that the project is consistent with the Trinidad local coastal plan and other applicable regulations, and I move to adopt information and findings in the staff report and approve the coastal development permit and grading permit for the Vero Digital 299 broadband project as described in the staff report and as conditioned therein with the addition of Trevor's 6th condition regarding it having to go to the council for their approval as well.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Unanimous.
I just have one general question. It's not pertinent to this, but just to clarify, when this line comes down Edwards, I assume that a resident on Edwards cannot request tapping in or splicing into the line, that it has to be through some third party or through the city?
I believe so.
Yes, dude.
Yes, I believe it'll, that will need to be a future conversation with a local carrier.
Big long cables running across the street. The other streets in town, right? All right, then we are done with that and we're on to the last items, 5A and 5B. Trevor.
All right. So I put these on as the same agenda item so that you can discuss them together because they're pretty closely related. This is our first exception under the STR ordinance for location standards. So the STR ordinance says that you can't have an STR sharing a property boundary with another STR. Both of these, they don't share property boundary with each other, but they so 160 scenic shares property boundary with 150 scenic that has another STR, and 140 scenic shares a boundary with 130 scenic. So both of these, I understand both of these places have been vacation rentals prior to the city's licensing requirements. Their previously vacation laws. So these are basically some of the 160 scenic is actually the southernmost property in town. It's fairly large properties off scenic drive. And so I think in areas where STRs are not haven't been as much of an issue and concern. Notices did go out to neighbors, about this. I think the primary property that would be affected would be one. Actually, they already have an STR by them. The applications were submitted, about the same time, or so close together. The exception request uses the conditional use permit findings. This is not a conditional use permit, though. It's not a coastal development permit. It just uses those findings to make the approval. So both of these are in separate staff reports. You've got some of the application materials there. The applicants have submitted some information helping to justify why their STRs would be, the exception should be granted for their STRs. I also provided a vicinity map that kind of shows the properties and locations. One question that I have separate from the exceptions is if the planning commission wants to provide additional guidance on site plans and how detailed they need to be. We get quite a variety. We've been trying to get them to be a little bit more carefully drawn over the years, but we don't have specific guidance. The STR ordinance just says they will be legible and to scale and have enough information. So if the plan is separate from the exceptions, staff would like to sort of create a checklist for people in terms of their site plan. So we have a little bit more consistency with this. Thank you. Take that tonight as well. The STRs, other than the exception, the adjacency, they are consistent with the STR ordinance. We'll have to maintain their license to the standards of that are included in the STR ordinance. The both of them, the septic systems and parking and things like that all appear to be adequate and in order. So staff is, and they do need to have their building inspection still, once they get this approval, they can continue the process. Staff is recommending approval. You know, that's, you can have a discussion on community character and what the neighbors have to say and things like that in terms of making your findings. But the findings are worded in a manner to allow approval, but as usual, you can change wording as needed. This, in terms of the license cap numbers, this would bring the SR zone up to the 7, which is the cap. And it would bring the total number, as you know, the UR zone is at the cap. With the last ordinance amendment, you reduce the cap in the UR zone, but up the cap in the SR zone. So it was 6, it's now 7. And the citywide cap of 32, this would bring it to 31.
Any questions for Trevor on 5A or 5B?
Yeah, I had a question regarding the number of STR caps. So both of these houses are located in special environment zoning, but we're couching that as urban residential, is that correct?
Yeah, so the developable portion of the lots are the SR portions. I didn't actually look exactly on the map where those fall, but both of these properties have both the zoning and the intent is the ones in SR zone. So yeah, the intent was to include properties like this in the SR. I understand.
And then that leads, there would be 31. The 32nd floating one is for which zoning?
Well, any zone where the cap's not met, so now the cap would be met in the UR and SR zones. So it could be in commercial or PD. I don't know of any houses that are purely in the SE zone.
Just like to get a little bit of clarification on the chart that we see up there. And we don't have the parcel boundary lines there, so it's a little difficult to understand, but you mentioned that 140 scenic has an STR adjacent to that 130. I get that. But it would seem to me that there also is, well, there is the Raven House at 150 scenic as well.
So there's, and I think it's on, there's a parcel map in the materials. Let's see, it looks like page 72. So there's a strip of 170 scenic that goes all the way down. You can see it better maybe on.
Okay, I see what you're talking about.
So there, so yeah, 170 actually separates.
That's right, yeah. Okay, so for three, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 STRs almost in a row.
Yes.
Anybody else questions for
I
Trevor?
had a couple of questions, yeah. There's been a lot of recognition recently about how much hand-wringing went into the development of the STR ordinance. Lengthy process. I think people were generally pretty happy with the end results. And, you know, we got the letter from Dick Bruce. I'm not sure if everybody saw that, right? But it was in the sort of supplement to the packet. The former STR committee chair saying that he supported the project, and that carries some weight. I was hoping that people who are more knowledgeable about it than I am could share a little bit about the history of the requirements of this exemption, just to ensure that we're sort of following the intent of the ordinance. Might be Trevor, that might be Richard. I mean, so why does this exemption exist? I guess is my question.
I think exactly for this reason, to be honest with you, was we recognized that in some areas of the city, because of the distance between two adjacent SDRs, that it would not be as much as a problem as it might be elsewhere in the city where, you know, you have back-to-back lots, 8,000 square foot lots, etc. And so I think the intent was that there may be certain circumstances where we can make an exception. And like I said, this is probably a classic example of that. There, on the other hand, in a lot of parts of the city, I can't imagine that we could, you know, have an exception, but certainly here, it certainly looks like it could be acceptable because of the distances between. Or I don't know if I said that.
No, it was definitely, we talked about clustering of STRs, particularly on Ocean Avenue, was a big issue. But it was also recognized that there are some STRs adjacent to each other that are well managed that don't cause issues. And so I think, the planning commission wanted to minimize that sort of clustering and make sure that there's residential uses around STRs, but also allow the planning commission to consider exceptions where it has significant impacts on them.
Thank you. How many parties were noticed? Do you recall off the top of your head? Certainly
I mean, these are big properties, so it was not a big notice list, but I did do 150 feet around each one. So 170 definitely got a notice, the Rancheria got a notice. Properties across Scenic would have gotten a notice.
150 as well.
150, yeah, and they submitted, that owner submitted a letter in support.
Do you recall, Trevor, did 180 get a notice? Down at the bottom there.
Oh, that's 160.
160, okay.
Yeah. That is the,
Sorry, thank you.
that's the.
170 is the
Yep.
end of city limits.
There's no opposition. People did voice an opinion or support it.
Yeah, so the neighbor, the owner at 150, that's current, they have their second, they have an ADU that's an STR, and they're really rebuilding their primary residence that's next 60 Scenic, and they submitted a letter in support of the 160 Scenic license. They feel it would be safer having people regularly out of the house.
The rest of the SDRs, are they aware of this? Is this going to create a problem on 7, which is they can't catch wind of it? The rest of them-
I mean, I don't see why, I mean, in terms of the cap, the only reason, these aren't coming to you because of the cap, they're coming to you because of the adjacency, so, you know, if this had been on Berry Road or further up Scenic, it just would have gone administratively. Haven't heard any complaints, but this is the first time we've gone through the process. We did not notice the STR managers.
Are there any other pending applications for STRs in the SR zone that you're aware of?
No, no. The only pending application is the one that just won the lottery in UR zone.
I've got one more question, if you don't mind, and it's about the septic tank, or the septic system rather, for the Morgan property. It's a little troubling, right, that there's no DEH file for it. Is there a way that can be rectified as part of this process?
We run into that pretty regularly, and it's one of the reasons we have a septic management program, so there are a good percentage of systems that were installed, not necessarily without permits, but for permit record keeping, so anything before the mid to late 70s, when the health department started keeping better records, they just wouldn't have a file for the permit, and then it also means that there haven't been complaints or issues where the health department had to go out there and, you know, do any investigations. So I guess in that sense, it's good. But so, and that's part of what our maintenance program is for, so that they have to have it inspected regularly.
So you don't have any real concerns about the condition of the BTS there?
You know, it's an older system. We don't know a whole lot about it. You know, one of the conditions on their permit is that they have the leach field probe. We don't know if it's a pit or lines, I think. So it's a little bit of an unknown, but again, you know, with the STR, they'll have a little bit shorter inspection schedule, and it's certainly not the only system like that in town. Making sure it's inspected and that it's operating properly should alleviate you know, potential issues. And you know, it is a system where when the property sells, or if they were proposing improvements, it might require upgrades, but not the STR license.
With all my questions, I'm happy to provide some thoughts on their questions as well, but I'll stop talking for a moment.
If the septic system were to be probed and found to just be a pit and not have lines, would that disqualify?
It's been inspected and can pass the leach line test that has been probed.
Gotcha.
It passed.
Thanks.
Yeah, But no, we don't require upgrades, that's not part of the STR ordinance, we just make sure that they're functioning, so you are allowed to continue to use, systems that are non.
I just had a couple thoughts. One, to your question, Trevor, as far as a site plan checklist, that kind of thing. I think that's a great idea. Sounds like it would be useful for you. I think the city inspector, the STR program manager, and you would probably be potentially better suited than us to decide what a site plan would look like, because I'm not the end user of that product. I might think something's really neat that is unimportant and the opposite. So that would be my suggestion just on that topic. And then be happy to offer, I don't know, a Google opinion or something down the road on that. And then just regarding the whole concept, then we'll hear from the applicants here in a second. I absolutely believe in the STRs and the benefit for everybody, property owners, the city, and I think they're a wonderful thing for this town. The adjacency restriction, from my recollection, was to prevent having a continuous line of STRs, and what I'm struggling with right now is that map that shows there's going to be 4 in a row, and I appreciate this separation. You know, I did some Google Earth searching, and it's not hard to find in the more dense sections of town where there's only 100-foot separation between buildings within town. There's a few examples of those in the denser areas. So, you know, I don't know, those are just my thoughts right now.
So, in regards to that site thing, Humboldt County has a system, but Arcata, I like Arcata's, because they throw in things about permaculture, you know, giving them how to create a wet area.
Just an editorial comment. I have 3 in a row. Right.
They were grandfathered in, but yeah, those.
Well, they're counted.
Yeah, so.
How is that as a resident?
It's not part of this conversation.
So with that, if there's nothing else for Trevor, the applicants, I think, are both in the room. I'd like to invite you guys up if there's anything you'd like to share.
Well, one of the reasons why.
And just, I'm sorry, for the recording purposes, if you wouldn't mind, I know it's irritation to come to the microphone, but otherwise
I just want to make sure that you guys understand, gals, one of the main reasons why we're pursuing this is we're gone a lot. And when we're gone, we're afraid in our neighbor Paul's, he's constructing his house currently. So it's our house and their house is vacant. And so not having somebody there, it's for safety reasons. We've had a handful of situations while we've been there where vagrants come up from the beach and or down scenic and probe around and try and, you know, a couple break-ins. One person made it through the doggy door, believe it or not. But so that's one of the issues. And it's not like downtown where you have other neighbors keeping eyes on everything for everybody in town. This is a one, you know, it's a dead end private road that we maintain, all 3 neighbors, and we watch out for each other. And that's all we have is, you know, the Rancheria can't see us and we can't see them. They have 5 houses over there, so they can easily watch people that come down their road. But people come down our road. We have our road.
Well, the fiber.
Yeah, right. Would help. But that was my main point, is it's a little bit different than a street or a block downtown where, and I think that's what the exception is all about. We're not a typical downtown type of neighborhood. Those are bigger lots and they're spread apart. And in one case, there's a deed that separates your property and the 130 property. And then between Paul and I, there's, you know, it's his house where he's going to live, but on the other side is the STR. So it's kind of, yeah, property line wise, you're right, it's 4 in a row, But if you went down there and you looked at each one, you'd see they're spread out. But that's all I have. How many questions for me?
But this is just a
Yeah.
off the cuff question. Is this the Roosevelt House? What's called the Roosevelt House?
That's fine, that's the other.
Oh, that's yours. Okay, okay. Knew one of them was. I just couldn't figure out which one it was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Basically, I understand where he's coming from. If you're away from a property such as we have, you have a lot of people who just think they can just willy-nilly go and show up and take use of your dam or whether, so I understand his issue about when they're away wanting to have somebody on the property. In my case, I'm in the position where my husband died 2 years ago, and I'm in a position where the only way I'm gonna be able to keep that property is to turn it into a vacation rental, which it was when we purchased it. We turned it into a permanent resident. It was under Trinidad Retreats under C-Stacks at that time. And we were living there, so we didn't want to do it. So basically, it's like it's turning it back into what it was actually meant to be, which was kind of a summer place. Anyway, and we are kind of isolated onto ourselves. I mean, and we don't have any really noise problems or any traffic problems or any, we don't have any really strong issues going on between him. I can't hear from his house and he can't hear from mine, and I certainly hear from 130. And so and certainly you can't hear from here where, where we are out there. And if you have any questions for me.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Right, so that brings it back to the commission. Any other discussion on this? Thoughts?
I guess in this instance, one thing, this is maybe a project that I would, it's not a project, but an instance I would certainly take into account public comment and particularly neighbors' comments that have heavily into account. And the letter of support from Paul, at least for the Morgan's projects place. He's going to be the one down there with all these short-term rentals, and he seems to be cool with it. So, I guess it's cool.
Okay, just for clarification, Paul has an STR on the property too.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely hear that, and that's what I'm internally wrestling with is, the input from neighbors and the safety and security concern. Those exist everywhere, and is that the right standard for me to grant an exception? Because anybody can ask for, I have safety concerns in my home. I have, STRs around me. We've had homes in town that have been broken into, unfortunately, there's a lot of second homes in town as well that aren't occupied, so the neighbors aren't necessarily always looking out. And then, is the support of a neighbor enough to override the intent, as I saw this? That was just kind of my two things I've been wrestling with since I started looking through this packet last week. That's all.
I wish there was someone to make a rental. We need places to live, that people need places to live. If there was, make it a short-term rental versus a rental for a school teacher. That's what I was really wrestling with. I wish there was a way to make a rental, so that a school teacher has a place to live. Also, you could make a lot of money from that too, just by renting out a house, but maybe not as much as a short-term rental in your location. I don't know what the numbers are, but.
My expenses on that house are roughly $5,000 a month. I don't think a school teacher is going to be able to afford that. I can't afford it. why I want to turn it into a short stay rental. I mean, that's an option, but it's not gonna be a school teacher. It's gonna be
Yeah.
somebody who's
Yeah.
from out of the area that's got a lot of money
Yeah.
that can afford that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
Any other discussion from the commission? And then Trevor, just procedurally, do we need to vote on these separately, or is there a single motion? I know they're presented as the same item, but they're two separate motions. So-
Yeah.
And then just a editorial comment, I know you commented in here that there's various concerns of, or which one got first, whatever. I was thankful to interpret that as that's the city staff and the city manager's problem to decide who, if there's any issue with.
Well,
It should be okay with the cap, right?
If there was one clear one that came in first, then I would have presented that to you first
Gotcha,
and
okay.
said, that's, you know, if you're only gonna approve one, it should be that one. Where I think in this case, they were so close that staff didn't have a clear. We couldn't clearly say, hey, if you're only gonna approve one, approve this one, and that's why I. wanted you to have them together.
But the theoretical math is there's room for both,
Yes,
so,
yes.
yeah. All right, is there anybody interested in making a motion?
I quickly ask, this is appealable to the council, correct?
It would be, so even though it's not a coastal development permit, planning commission actions are appealable to the city council, yes.
Well, I will try to answer your question slightly. And I'll put it this way, if there was ever an opportunity to exercise the exception, I would do it here. I would not do it at where I live. So that's just the way.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish that there was a way to, because this is the first of these that we've encountered, right? And probably first anybody has encountered that our rationale for granting an exception ought to be explicit, right? There should be no sort of mystery about why it is that we decided to grant an exception in this case. And I don't know if that's something that can be included in the text of the motion itself. But you're right, it is sort of I agree with you, that it is a unique situation that probably does warrant an exemption. I want to make it clear why it is that we believe that in this case, just for the sake of transparency.
Some of that's included in the findings, but if you wanna, I mean, if you wanna be more clear, that would be where you might. The uniqueness of the situation. Probably, finding number one is the broadest. That the proposed use of the site and intensity contemplated in the proposed location will provide development that is necessary to provide desirable for and without the neighborhood. So that's probably one. Reasoning is to kind of put it.
Where are you, Trevor?
So there's two sets of findings, so one would be back at page 53 is for the Morgan
Right.
one. Page 65.
So B1. For,
A.
oh, A, I see, okay. We going to add some additional language or with what's there?
I'm thinking.
Okay.
Nobody else was, or didn't know what we wanted to do.
I like what we say under B1. It's fairly explicit. We talk about distance between the STRs. I'm looking at 6.
The only language I'm just thinking, and I'm trying to think of a way to word something to this effect, that for me personally, the degree of occupancy of somebody's residence does not factor in for me as a criteria to grant an exception. That, you know, that it is, with all due respect, kind of individual circumstances, those are rife throughout the entire city limits. We have homes that are second homes, rentals, occupied some of the time, seasonal homes. So to me, doesn't support an exception. So I'm trying to think of a way to incorporate language to that effect. And kind of on the same vein, support from a neighbor is helpful, but for me, doesn't necessarily, you know, I can't think of really any action I've taken as a commissioner has been solely because of, or, you know, that tip the scale for me with it. I don't know if anybody has similar thoughts or ideas on that language. Or see it someplace in here already.
Yeah, I just see it opening up a flood of exceptions.
I don't see that at all.
Around town.
No. I mean, the distances that we're talking about are literally an order of magnitude.
I understand, but
different.
everybody else that has this situation is going to say, hey, they got exceptions, we want them. And it's just gonna open up. I mean, I don't have a problem with this particular exception. I really don't, but I am concerned about if it opens up others wanting one, everybody's gonna have a similar story. That's like, oh my God, I need to rent. And I understand, but that's my biggest concern.
I share that concern. I would say currently anybody can request an exception before us at any time. So everybody has that right already.
Yeah.
Will it potentially encourage more people to do so? Yeah. So we might have to have additional discussion, and, you know, some people might get a yes, some people might get a no based off the circumstances. But, you know, currently elsewhere in town, there really isn't any other opportunity for currently as the licenses go, because we're at the caps.
Yeah.
You know, so that probably.
And we're at a cap, we're doing good, you know.
And the other, my recollection, Richard or Gabe or Trevor or Eli or Tom, that's been with us longer than the other three of us. My recollection is that the feedback for the kind of close-in concerns, having them in a row, we've never gotten adverse feedback from the more spread out, larger parcel areas. It's always been in the compact, denser sections of town, right? I mean, I'm not aware of ever having heard any complaint.
Even on Berry, where the properties are a little smaller. Yeah. With that. All in town, it's really mostly on Ocean. I mean, there's a couple of clusters in other places that weren't.
I guess, one thing that, in addition to what I mentioned earlier, about the public comment, but also the physical separation, like, I don't really see these houses as even like being in a neighborhood. Like, they're sort of all down there by themselves. I've never been down there, I don't know, but I would imagine you probably don't even know if your neighbor's there or not most of the time. And so, and these houses are designed that way, like they're designed to be secluded but scenic or something like that. And I think that is sort of does warrant an exception. I think what maybe what would draw a line for me is if we were at the cap and then somebody wanted an exception to the cap and to be next door to somebody. Then I don't know if that's, you sort of mentioned that that could be a potential possibility. But
No, so there are no exceptions to caps.
all right. Then never mind. I mean, I guess I would also say that if I were, I don't want to live in a neighborhood surrounded by SDRs, but given that Paul seems that, then I guess it's like maybe I would write a letter in support if I were down there, but maybe I'd feel differently if I lived there also.
It is a very special space down there. It really is something to see, you know, and being by yourself is a real deal. So, and there's a lot of traffic on scenic. So I'm for it.
Refresh me, licenses stay with the property owner. If it transfers to the family, the license does not stay, correct, in the ordinance?
Yeah, we limited that as much as possible. I mean, if it's an LLC, there are. I forget the exact language, but we restricted that as much as we could. And if the spouse dies, the other spouse can retain the license.
I think that was the only exception that we made. Is that
It's not supposed to like inherit.
As far as my desire for language, you know, I went on the record with my thoughts, so I'm comfortable with that. You'd add the language. So is there anybody, I guess, at the point, there's no other discussion, we can entertain a motion.
Based on application materials, information, findings included in the staff report, based on public testimony, I find that the Morgan project is consistent with applicable regulations to adopt the information required exception findings in the staff report and approve the exception as described in the staff report.
All right, there's a second. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Motion for 5B, the Fritz property.
More than 55.
No, that is on
67.
67.
it's the same.
It's on the material, application materials, information and findings included in the staff report and based on public testimony. I find that the project is consistent with applicable regulations and I move to adopt the information and required exception findings in this staff report, that exception as described in the staff report as conditioned.
Get a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. All right, that is 5A and B. Moving on the agenda, we won't be offended if the applicants choose to leave at this point. We're completely used to that. But you're welcome to stay. Fascinating stuff coming up. All right. Trying to find the rest of my agenda here.
The reason I asked about that was the Roosevelt House. Are you familiar with?
No,
That house was a vacation home for the cousin of Franklin Roosevelt.
that's not big.
And his
Or
Eleanor, you're right, Eleanor, yeah. And the Steen Trump, if you know Steen Trump, and some of their children used to play together. And one of the sons of the cousin, whose name is Ted Elliott, comes up here quite often, and he's got a beautiful winery. And down south, and so he's quite the character, but it's an interesting story on that house. It's kind of, I don't mean to bore you with that, but it's kind of,
It's an interesting house.
it is, yeah.
We should have planned a trip. We should have went over there.
But you can rent it. You'll be able to rent it.
Thank you.
All right, commissioner reports. Any commissioners have any reports they'd like to make?
I just found out that we had a sign thing set up, but the Rancheria has said that they want to look at other options, or that we have to look at other options. So now we're kind of looking at options for trail signage. Let you know, or at least we're exploring. So just to let you know, we took a step backwards.
I can't remember who made the comment last night on it, the council meeting, but the way they explained it, I want to make sure you have the same information, or that they had the right information, was that they had maybe a more permanent version of signage that would be less likely to be borrowed by someone that thought it would be cool to have a signpost. Is that
It's
your understanding, or does it seem like more of a step backwards to you?
one of the reasons that we chose the galvanized pipe, 2-inch pipe, to go in was to pound it into the ground as opposed to dig out and then pour concrete. And that would be the more permanent manner. That's because the pounding was requested by TAS. And so that's why we went this path, to explore that. But whatever, it's either way. And this system, it's a galvanized 2-inch pipes. They're used all on the highways in all every city, and that's what's used out there on. And so we were going to cover it with a piece of wood to make it more decorative, but maybe that wasn't all understood. I don't know. That we're looking at options and open to input, as I understand it. On the trail committee.
Any other commissioners? All right, Trevor, if you'd like to speak some more, you have another opportunity now.
I mean, it's kind of overwhelming right now. It's applications continue. It's our trying to hold some off though for the moment. Then the grant funding, we just have to make 31st that, and then the OPC. So those are both big projects. We want to get as much done on those as we can. So I don't know, even though I have we have to. So are we still waiting for Barry? Check. Yeah,
Okay.
but I'm just, so they have an application in, we're just waiting for the check, and then the state parks submitted an application for entering. I don't know if I'll be able to get either of those on the June agenda with everything else.
Future agenda items? Any changes anybody wants to see? Any additions?
Did you email the agreement? The
Management plan?
management plan?
Did I?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you?
That was great to have a copy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's an interesting read. I read it when I was on the Trails Committee. First,
Good
yeah.
read.
Yeah, there's a lot of,
I hadn't read the whole thing.
yeah.
And the LACO report was quite interesting. Yes.
Yeah, we have two water service applications, but that doesn't come.
But the only quasi report just popped in my brain is that the next city council meeting happening in 2 weeks, Gabe, May 28th. For those that are interested, the initial water rate study is going to be presented by the contractor that's grant funded. It's done that for the city, so it'll be the first opportunity to get firsthand information and ask questions and that kind of stuff. So that'll be here. So I encourage anybody with interest in that to get your information firsthand. And with that, I think we are adjourned.